Now I request Swami Suviranandaji to hand over the award to Dr. Vivek Debroy. The moment that we have been all waiting for. The Indian pen industry and the ink industry is richer today because of his contribution through his books. He has written many books, but then on this occasion to mention about what is written on the fountain pen industry. Felicitations from Ramakrishna Mission to Dr. Vivek Debroy. I have the privilege and honor to now request the recipient of the award to give his acceptance speech. Let's listen to him, his emotions and his views on fountain pens and this industry. Over to Dr. Vivek Debroy.
ধাঁধায় পড়ে গেছি বাংলায় বলবো না ইংরেজিতে বলবো संस्कृतेन अपि वक्तुं शक्नोमि परन्तु मन्ये अत्र उपस्थिताः सर्वे जनाः संस्कृतं न अवगच्छन्ति Much as I would wish to speak in Bengali, perhaps I should resist, because by the same token, I don't think everyone here understands Bengali. Respected Swami Suviranandaji Maharaj, respected Swami Suparnanandaji Maharaj, Mr. Haldar, the maestro and master of ceremonies today, Professor Janardhan, and the people who are hiding behind the scenes, Mr. Maitra of Sulekha and Chong Ganguly of Ink Happiness. Anyone familiar with fountain pens and ink in India will immediately accept the only person who deserves an Ink Happiness Award is Chong Ganguly. But that would be somewhat incestuous for Mr. Ganguly to give himself an award. I am conscious of the 5 distinguished predecessors, all respected names who have won this award before me. Having said this, anything that smacks of lifetime achievement, and I have received lifetime achievement awards before, anything that smacks of lifetime achievement seems to suggest to me that look, you are getting old. Life is pretty much soon going to be over. Fountain pens. Penta Bean. But the club is called Column Club. And there is a reason why we should use the word hollow. rather than pen. Before the advent of fountain pens, there used to be the dip pens. What is a fountain pen? A fountain pen is a pen that has a reservoir of ink inside it. Before fountain pens were invented, there were dip pens where you needed an ink pot and you dipped your pen in it. Even before that, people used quills or people used reed. The word pen, etymologically, is from feather. Whether you use a quill as in feathers or whether you use a reed depends a little bit on the material that you're writing on. And historically, we were not particularly fond of writing on hide. We preferred bark. So the hide bit of it, the leather bit of it is European. And therefore pens etymologically are European. Whereas the word column, which entered Sanskrit also, is related to reed, which is the reason I said that we should really be saying column tadi, not fountain pen. There is a history of fountain pen making in India. There is a history of making ink in India. When we were children, in this part of the country at least, we grew up with Shulekha. We grew up with bottles of Shulekha, we grew up with bottles of Royal Blue, and we grew up with pictures of Mahatma Gandhi that used to be there in those bottles. I often experiment and ask people, assuming you use fountain pens, what ink did you use? Eastern parts, provided people are a little bit old like me, they'll say Sulekha. People who are a little bit younger from other parts of the country will probably say Camlin. Camlin, those who know about fountain pens, Mr. Dandekar died recently. Originally, ink was not liquid. Ink was in the form of tablets, which you dissolved in water. So Dandekar and company used to make tablets under the brand name of Horse. And then they decided, why not call it a camel? Because a camel conveys an impression of being able to travel long distances without water. So that tablet was branded as Camel. And when it became liquid ink, Camel plus ink, it became Camel. So this is a good experiment. If you want polite and you don't want to ask a person his or her age, ask them about the ink they used. Sulekha means they are older. Camlin means they are not that old. The myth, and it's partly a myth, is that fountain pens have gone out of fashion. Who uses fountain pens these days? For that matter, who uses writing instruments these days? Writing itself is going out of fashion. In fact, reading itself is going out of fashion. Books are also increasingly going out of fashion. But there are people sometimes harping on nostalgia who still use fountain pens, who still talk about ink. Some of it is snob value. Mobla, for example. I once ran into someone I knew on an aircraft. And unfortunately these days, whenever I meet someone, one of the first things that attracts my attention is his or her pocket, well, since it's a pocket, his, and the kind of pen he has got in his pocket. So I could see from a distance on the plane that he had got a Mont Blanc in his pocket. So I asked, is that a 149? He said, I don't know. Someone gave it to me and I've never used it. I just put it in my pocket. In Delhi, I know a businessman. I will not tell you his actual name, let me just call him Mr. Jain. I got to know Mr. Jain. And Mr. Jain told me, next time in Delhi you see someone with a Mont Blanc in his pocket, ask him if he can borrow the pen. He will not lend it to you. I said, why? What's the mistake? Mr. Jain figured that since there was a market for Mont Blanc pens which cost something like 75,000, why should he not make fake Mont Blanc pens? So he started making fake Mont Blanc pens. And then he realized these pens are not meant to be used. They are only meant to be brandished in the pocket. So why do I need to make the entire pen? Let me only make the cap. So this is the point you are trying to make. You want to borrow the pen, the person will not give you the pen because there is no pen, it's only a cap. But there is some sort of a resurgence, I think, some interest in fountain pens. When one is talking about fountain pens, there are all kinds of different markets one is talking about. There are different slices, there are different income brackets. And what Mr. Ganguly, Inked Happiness and Sulekha are trying to do very successfully, although it is initial days, is to revive the interest among students. Among students because of convenience, because of speed. The use of fountain pens has generally died out, except in a state like Tamil Nadu where there is a conscious attempt. So what Mr. Ganguly, Inked Happiness and Mr. Maitra are trying to do, ignite that interest among students, is a very laudable achievement. Quite apart from the fact that fountain pens almost definitionally, almost tautologically, make for good handwriting. No one will have the superb calligraphic skills that Professor Janardhan has, and he's the only person I know who's been authorized to write his own name on his passport. And if you have not seen his handwriting, if you have not seen his calligraphy skills, you've missed out on something. He's also been authorized to write his daughter's name on a birth certificate, I think, but anyway, that's a different thing. But there is another market which I think is developing. And that is the market of young professionals. Young professionals who can just about, who have good jobs, who can afford about 2,000 rupees to 5,000 rupees. And these people want to buy fountain pens because, like that old Maggie ad, they want to be different. The problem is, these people will normally not buy Indian fountain pens. And there are reasons that I will come to in a minute. They will buy the Lamy, they will buy the Scrix, they will buy the Waterman, they will buy the Sheffers, which of course now is an Indian brand because it has been bought over by William Penn. So the question to ask, is, do Indian manufacturers not make fountain pens? What is the problem? They do make fountain pens. The problem with most of these manufacturers is that historically they have been MSME, even now, micro, small and medium enterprises. They lack the resources to invest in technology. They do not have the volumes. They lack the resources to invest in marketing and distribution. The Chinese are everywhere. The Chinese have increased their prices recently. But I can pick up a decent Jinhao, which may be an imitation Moga, but I can pick up a decent Jinhao for 600 rupees, 700 rupees. So if you cannot deliver a pen, a fountain pen to me, that costs in the vicinity of 500 rupees, 600 rupees, 700 rupees, less than 1,000 rupees, then no matter how nationalistic I am, I will buy the Jinhao. There are certain Indian pen manufacturers who are simply not bothered. I will not name them. They are not bothered because there is a market of exotic Indian fountain pens abroad. So they are not bothered about the domestic market. They know in the US market, I can sell a fountain pen regardless of how much it is worth for 50,000 rupees. I don't sell sufficient numbers, but even if I sell a few, that's good enough for me. So there are actual fountain pen manufacturers who do this. But there are some others who I shall name who are different. The popular myth goes that the first fountain pen was made in India by Ratnam in 1932/1935. There was a family of goldsmiths in Rajamundry named K.V. Ratnam, and K.V. Ratnam was introduced to Gandhiji just as the original makers of Sulekha were. And Gandhiji said, instead of making gold jewelry, why don't you make something useful? So he said, make fountain pens. So Ratnam produced the first fountain pen in India in 1932 and presented it to Gandhiji. And Gandhiji said, sorry, I'm not going to accept this. Not everything in this fountain pen is indigenous. So Ratnam went back and came back with a completely indigenous fountain pen in 1935. So even now, the official record books generally tend to say that Ratnam was the first fountain pen made in India. And even now, when the President of India goes abroad, presents a fountain pen, more often than not, it will be a Ratnam 301. By the way, if you want to collect fountain pens, and you want to buy a Ratnam, better do it fast. Because Ratnam is soon going to close down. The newer generation is not interested. But I said this is a myth. This is a myth partly, and I hope I'm not provoking anyone. This is a myth partly because we Bengalis are very bad at documenting our history. The first fountain pen was made in India by Dr. Radhika Nath Shah in Benares in 1905, 1906, 1907, thereabouts. This was mentioned in the introduction, unless you missed it, that Dr. Shobhan Rai, who's won a Lifetime Achievement Award earlier, rediscovered Dr. Radhika Nath Shah and wrote a book about him. He wrote the history of Indian fountain pens in a way. In that day and age, Dr. Radhika Nath Shaha made Lakshmi pens from Benares. It was called Lakshmi pens because it was made from Lakshmi Kund in Benares. If you look at those fountain pens, if you can find one, they are remarkably similar to the Parkers of the 1890s. The second one was from here, Fanindranath Gupta, around 1925. Both of these before Ratnam. Like much else, some of this, including Sulekha, was driven by the Swadeshi spirit. Again, I hope I am not provoking anyone if I say that down the years, entrepreneurship has been destroyed in these parts of the country. So this attempt to revive Sulekha, and reviving Sulekha does not mean only fountain pen and only ink, also fountain pens. This attempt is a recognition of our history, a recognition of our legacy, a recognition of our parampara, and it is also an attempt to reignite entrepreneurship in this part. I mentioned fountain pen manufacturers who make exclusively for the West, but there are others. One of my favorites, entry level, that I recommend to people is Click Aristocrat. 350 rupees, 400 rupees, around that. Then there is Scanwrite from Kanpur. There is Click from Indore. And now there is Sulekha. All of these are in the price ranges that I was talking about. Less than 2,000. Less even than 1,000. Click Aristocrat is some 300 to 500. Thereabouts, 400. Camlin Elegante, 300 rupees. One of the problems is people do not know. One of the problems is marketing and distribution. Because I recommend a pen, immediately the answer will be, oh, but look, I get Jinhao easily from Amazon. Where can I possibly get Scanwrite? Where can I get Click? Where can I get Sulekha? But sooner or later, I think this will change. Today, and I am being provocative, I think there are too many fountain pen manufacturers in India. Who are the important US fountain pen manufacturers? To the extent you can define a US manufacturer, you will be able to name 4 or 5. 60 years ago, there were thousands. MSME in the US, because of the competition, they have closed down. Whether we like it or not, because of the competition, as many historical fountain pen manufacturers in India have closed down, so will some of the ones that exist today. As I said, they will not be able to invest in the technology, they will not be able to invest in the marketing and distribution. But I hope, I am confident, 5 or 6 will remain. And I hope and I am confident that Sulekha, flying the flag from this part of the country, will be one of them. Therein lies not just the hopes of ink happiness, but all our happiness. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to give him a standing ovation for that wonderful rendition, the history of the fountain pen industry. He told you about different brands, He told you how it happened. He listed out everything, what an education. It was almost like listening to Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who used to take a class in Presidency College in Chennai. I believe he used to go 20 minutes late to class, and in 20 minutes whatever he said was essence enough to unfurl a PhD. So much of information he gave in his acceptance speech. I think we are richer by that knowledge. And the industry is also going to be richer by that, and you people enjoy writing.